Because what the hell are we doing here? This is probably one of the most mind-blowing picks we have seen from a team in a very long time, at least in my personal opinion.
But regardless of who plays quarterback for this team long term, the Falcons have invested in the position, something that the previous regime did not do for years and years and years. Round 1 of the NFL draft is done. We're heading into round 2, but let's talk about winners and losers for Dynasty football. Players that were drafted and also players that weren't drafted that were impacted by negative or positive moves in the NFL draft from round 1. All right, let's start with winners. We're going to give you 3 winners each. I think, and this is a super fun conversation. There's a lot of ways it could go. But regardless of how you feel about the Michael Penix Jr. pick, I think the Atlanta Falcons weapons, all of them are huge, huge winners after round 1. I know the pick is crazy. It doesn't make sense. From what we understand, Michael Penix was the Falcons quarterback 2 in the class, and they felt like they were getting a huge discount there. But regardless of who plays quarterback for this team long term, the Falcons have invested in the position, something that the previous regime did not do for years and years and years. Now, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, those owners in Dynasty should be absolutely cheering because at least you know you're going to have competent quarterback play for years and years to come. By the way, I also believe that adding Michael Penix on a rookie contract at some point, if they move on from Kirk Cousins, that leads me to believe that all 3 of these guys could be signed long-term. Your Drake London, your Kyle Pitts, or Bijan Robinson. We know it is easier for an NFL team to invest in those positions and those weapons when they have a quarterback on a rookie contract. So I would not be surprised at all if Kirk is cut after 2 years into his deal or whatever the case may be. But regardless, I see the Atlanta Falcons very secure right now in Dynasty football. They didn't add Rome Odunze when they could have, right?
Sure.
But they did add a quarterback to compete with already a very good quarterback in Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, still baffling, in my personal opinion, that Michael Penix is an Atlanta Falcon. And
we're recording this, an hour after the NFL draft, and we're still like,
it's still
what just happened?
I'm still processing it, and you might see somebody on my losers that might be linked to that team. All right, my winner on my side, of course, is the Minnesota Vikings weapons, and honestly, just the Minnesota Vikings organization as a whole. Okay, I mean, let's just start off with this offense, right? They lose Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, and they draft J.J. McCarthy with the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft. And what have we heard all offseason so far, or at least for the past month and a half, was that the Vikings traded up again into the first round of this draft class to then try to trade up into the top 5 pick of the NFL draft. I was on the board where this team or no team should be trading out of the top 6. And that's exactly what happens. J.J. McCarthy falls to the lap of the Minnesota Vikings. And this is huge. Getting J.J. McCarthy, a winning quarterback, linked with Kevin O'Connell will be a deadly combo because of 3 names. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. And you can even insert a running back that we both kind of expect maybe potentially be going to this team maybe in the 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th round of this draft that's going to be changing everything. Let me even throw in Aaron Jones into that conversation. He may be an older running back, but somebody that benefits from this pick with J.J. McCarthy, arguably just as good of his offense as Caleb Williams, if you think about it. J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings are probably the biggest winners in this draft class, or in round 1 so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Huge winner J.J. McCarthy is for Dynasty football. And obviously it feels good if you own those weapons to know, okay, there's a prospect we like that could really help them long term. All right, my second biggest winner, it's a little bit blank slated here, but whatever running back the Chargers and the Cowboys select on day 2. Okay, day 2 meaning rounds 2 or 3. I believe both of those franchises are going to invest into the running back position. Whatever running back the Chargers or the Cowboys select is a huge winner after day 1. Okay, let's start with the Chargers. The Chargers all offseason after the Harbaugh signing and they brought over Greg Roman said, we want to get tougher. We want to build through the trenches. Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they preached what kind of offense they wanted to see in Los Angeles, and they put their money where their mouth is. They drafted an elite offensive tackle prospect in Joe Alt, a prospect that could be good enough to be the number 1 overall pick in plenty of drafts, but he falls to number 5 overall. Now you have Alt and Slater as your bookend tackles for this team. That's going to help Joe Burrow. That's also going to help the run game, whoever ends up being the running back there. Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Core, Marshawn Lloyd. Name a running back that you like who could go day 2. They will massively benefit from a Joe Alt joining the Chargers. And when you talk about the Cowboys, they had a chance to draft all these different type of weapons that were available on the board. Instead, they went Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. So even though they lost Tyron Smith, they're still thinking about the offensive line and how can they improve that long term. So whatever running back lands with these two guys are going to shoot up Dynasty rookie draft boards.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Cannot wait for day 2 for this class, to be honest with you. All right, my second winner.
Same.
Technically, yeah, second winner of my list here is Trevor Lawrence. Okay, look, I haven't been the biggest Trevor Lawrence advocate so far this offseason.
Come on, talk it
up. But I have to admit, Brian Thomas Jr. is a fantastic pick here. Okay, Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne. Getting a big body playmaker that I have compared to Michael Pittman, has the glimmers of Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be a deadly combo for Trevor Lawrence if he can honestly, at the end of the day, get 2 feet down if you're throwing the ball to him. Unlike Calvin Ridley, this is probably one of the best picks for Trevor Lawrence, because if you think about it, they trade back. They traded back and got more draft capital. So this is not only a good pick for Trevor Lawrence, this is a good pick and move for the organization as a whole here. So Trevor Lawrence, a huge winner in round 1.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Love Trevor Lawrence. I've been backing him this offseason, and I think now we got some life. That Trevor Lawrence gang, where y'all at? Let me know in the comment section. It's back. We're back, baby. We never left. We were lurking in the shadows. When you guys were sleeping, we were working. All right?
Sure.
My next winner is your quarterback of your favorite team.
Talk it up.
Badaki. For Dynasty Football. I think he's a winner today. Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. There was a lot of talk that your Giants were going to draft a quarterback at number 6 overall. We were just on a live stream today. In fact, we have been live for 6 hours today across different streams, and we're still making content for y'all.
Yeah.
And Badaki was sold in love with the idea of taking a quarterback at 6.
100%.
You bought into it, and for good reasons. It was a great quarterback class. There was even talks that you guys could trade up for JJ, trade up for Drake May. Better yet, there were also talks that if you guys pass on a quarterback in round 1, well, maybe you'll get a Penix or a Nix in round 2.
Yep.
Those guys are off the board. They're not available. They stuck and instead took a wide receiver, an elite wide receiver prospect in Malik Neighbors, combined Neighbors with an improved offensive line that you guys have built up through free agency, and Daniel Jones now has another lifeline available for Dynasty. He has another year to prove himself. The Giants have an out after 2025, which is $22 million dead cap hit after this year, But could Jones revive his career? Better O-line? A better supporting cast? Maybe. But either way, if you own Daniel Jones, consider this your last opportunity to sell him for anything worth value. But regardless, even if you dislike Daniel Jones, his value has improved in Dynasty, no doubt, after round 1.
Yeah, no question. I mean, we've done so many roster reviews where we said you have to hope, because their QB2 is Daniel Jones. You have to hope that the Giants don't take a quarterback. Revitalization season here for Daniel Jones. All right, my third and final winner for this video here. I have 2 guys, Jahan Dotson and Quentin Johnston, okay?
I like it, low-key, sneaky.
Yes, I have been screaming all off season, get Jahan Dotson, because we knew that the Washington Commanders were going to draft a quarterback, whether that was Drake May, whether that was Jaden Daniels, but people were like, oh, I don't know. Guys, this is a first-round wide receiver that is now getting an elite talent. Well, I'm not going to put elite yet, but
put it on his name.
A very talented quarterback for this team. A new head coach, Dan Quinn, a new offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, a new franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and now you have Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. These guys have to eat. There's no question they're going to be involved, especially in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. That's for Jahan Dotson specifically. Let's go to Quentin really fast. If you have been following us, I have always been a Quentin Johnston believer. This is a low-key win. We've all been worried about the Chargers drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors, but that's not reality. We're even concerned now still that the Chargers are going to draft a wide receiver in round 2. which I completely get. But I think that changes the conversation because you're going from an elite prospect talent and Marvin Harrison Jr. and or Malik Neighbors that could have been taken with a top 5 pick to someone at the moment, we don't know who's going, like a Ladd McConkey, who is absolutely great, who a lot of people would have over Quentin Johnson, maybe an Adonai Mitchell, maybe a Troy Franklin. That doesn't mean Quentin Johnston is dead in the water if either of these guys go to the Chargers. Now, I would say some of these talents, some of these prospects may be better than Quentin, but still doesn't mean that he's a dead asset now. I think there is life here for Quentin Johnston. Now, before we were worried, there was some mock drafts where we saw both of these guys, Marvin Harrison Jr. going with the 5th overall pick, and then them getting a Ladd McConkey, them getting an Adonai Mitchell in the 2nd round. That's not the case anymore. There's only one wide receiver at the moment that we are projecting to go. Well, not one wide receiver, but there's only one pick in the 2nd round that the Chargers have. And yes, we expect that to be a wide receiver, but that does not mean Quentin Johnston is dead. So I think he is a low-key winner going into the 2nd day of the NFL draft.
As we sit here today, only round 1 finished. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yes.
I think both of those teams could still add wide receiver. Wouldn't be surprised if Ayuk is a sneaky destination for Washington. Wouldn't be surprised linking back up with Jaden Daniels.
Sure. Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if we took a Ladd McConkey or a Troy Franklin or someone else to add to our wide receiver room. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers did either.
Sure.
It's a deep wide receiver class, but I wholeheartedly agree right now those guys are winners.
Yeah, no question.
After round 1. All right, let's go to Bad Cop now. We are going to tell you about the losers. Just before we do, we got to let you guys know that we are grinding so hard to get our final rookie report version out. This will be version 4.0. There will be new updated rookie rankings with tiers, positional rankings, historical hit rates. Everything that you need to absolutely dominate your rookie draft is going to be in that final rookie report. And it releases the day after the NFL draft finishes. So you will have that report so you can go dominate your rookie drafts. You'll also get our complete Dynasty rankings, a hotline where you can DM us for advice, and a Dynasty team review. So when you sign up, become a Motherflocker member with the code LAND, and all of that will be available to you. All right, let's go losers. 3 each, and we'll do this quickly. Michael Mayer is a loser.
R.I.P.
Got to be honest, this one hurt my heart because I really felt like Michael Mayer was set for a nice little breakout in year 2. Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers are 2 of the most productive tight ends we've ever seen in collegiate history. Like, 2 of the most productive guys ever at their position. And now they're both on the same team, but Brock Bowers was drafted in round 1 by this team, this head coach, this organization, this staff. So I loved Michael Mayer's profile. I really thought there was a breakout coming in 2024. But this team, after drafting Brock Bowers in top 15, I think it really puts Michael Mayer in a coffin for fantasy football. I mean, I just really struggle to see them both succeeding at the same time while competing with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. I just can't wrap my head around this. So I'm sorry if you were in on Mayer like myself. The last pick I expected the Raiders to make was Brock Bowers. Okay, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, this is terrible for Michael Mayer. It's absolutely awful.
Yeah, I mean, dead in the water, and crazy. Unless they run a 2 tight end set, which
they definitely could. Bowers isn't really going to be your typical inline guy, but I just don't know what that means for Mayer.
I completely agree here. All right, one of my biggest losers here, and I think a lot of people would have, these 2, I mean, maybe these 2 for me, maybe just one on the list. That's Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. I would just say the Atlanta Falcons organization as a whole, because what the hell are we doing here? This is probably one of the most mind-blowing picks we have seen from a team in a very long time, at least in my personal opinion. Let's break it down. They signed Kirk Cousins to $100 million 4-year contract with great weapons around him. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, a decent offensive line, some great weapons on the defensive side of the ball. And then with the 8th overall pick, you have to say it's Jared Verse, it's somebody else. And name anyone else. But no, it's Michael Penix Jr., an injury-prone quarterback, a non-mobile quarterback who is 24 years old, going to the Atlanta Falcons, who just signed, once again, Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $100 million contract. What are we doing? Kirk Cousins is a loser for me because you really have to envision this as a fantasy owner. And what does this tell you? What this pick tells you for a fantasy owner, if you have Kirk Cousins, if you're probably just traded for him, like me, in multiple leagues, I've traded for Kirk Cousins because I thought this was phenomenal. Are the Falcons concerned about Kirk Cousins' timeline to return to the field with this Achilles injury? We haven't heard any reports. I haven't heard any reports. Have you heard any reports, Zach?
No, I have not.
He hasn't heard
not as of now.
nothing as of now for the timeline of Kirk Cousins to return to the field. So that's okay. Is Kirk Cousins, the second question we had to ask ourselves, is Kirk Cousins on a shorter leash than we expected with the $100 million contract? Let's look at the contract. The contract is, once again, $100 million, $100 million guaranteed. He signs a 4-year, $180 million contract. If you look at this, the screenshot here on your screen, he has an out in 2027. But this is the thing. It's kind of like a 2-year contract because they can get out of that in 2026 by taking a $25 million cap hit, which, like Zach just said about Daniel Jones, right? With the Giants, if they don't like him, if he doesn't perform, they can get out of it. Right. So it's essentially the 2-year contract, but you still take that cap hit, or you can wait a whole nother year in 2027 and take a $12.5 million cap hit. But then that gives you the question, how short is that leash? Does Kirk Cousins have to go to some sort of playoff run to be the starting quarterback for the next 2 years? Look, we have talked about this so much, and it's still back and forth. My initial reaction to keep this short, and I'll close it out with this Twitter version, it doesn't make sense to sign Kirk Cousins to a $100 million deal, then draft Michael Penix, who is 24 years old, with the 10th or 8th overall pick, and then say, okay, guys, just fight it out. That doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense to me who's going to be the starter. So this is a loss for Kirk Cousins because this does tell me that he's on a shorter leash. This probably is, in my opinion, a loss for Michael Penix because he could have gone to the Raiders. He could have gone where we feel more comfortable with him competing. He could have gone to the Broncos where he felt more comfortable competing. He could have went somewhere else where he most likely would have started, in my opinion, day one outside of the Atlanta Falcons. So let us know what you think in the comments, but this is incredibly difficult to swallow. I don't get it.
That's what she said. One thing that Spotrac doesn't show you with this contract is the guaranteed salary. After the year 2025, there is no money for the next 2 years as a guaranteed salary. So they set it up in a way where they could move on after 2 years. And keep in mind, he is coming off an ACL tear. I think he'll be fine, but he will be 38 in 2 years. Do they want to pay him? Was it $50 million at the age of 40? I don't know. We don't really know that.
Let me just say this, sorry, and then we can just move on. If Kirk Cousins goes to the playoff this year, I think they give him another year. I don't think we can see, respectfully, I don't think we'll see, not respectfully, but I just don't see if Kirk Cousins goes to the playoffs in 2024 or has a above 500 record for the next 2 years, that how he's not the starter on this team. Unless he is the reason why they're losing.
One thing people aren't talking about enough is the Falcons came out and said the number 2 quarterback on their board was Michael Penix, ahead of Daniels, ahead of Drake May. That was the number 2 quarterback on their board. So at 8, they thought it was a huge steal. They thought, oh my God, we got the quarterback of our future here at 8. And people keep talking about why wouldn't they trade down? Why wouldn't they trade down? Guys, if they wanted Michael Penix, a trade down would be a team taking Michael Penix. No, they couldn't have traded down 10 picks and waited for Michael Penix. Penix would have been gone. We know Knicks went at 12, right? So all I'm saying is I think it's an indictment on Cousins when you think about how obsessed this team is with Penix to make that pick, to have him as their quarterback too in such a stacked class. But that is a different conversation for a different day. All right, my second loser, and I got to be honest here, I'm not a big fan of talking about this, but I think DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are both losers after round 1. I think this hurts Keenan more than it actually hurts DJ, but still, I think it absolutely sucks for these two guys. DJ Moore last year accounted for over 30% of Chicago's team total receiving offense, yards, targets, touchdowns, and now he has some serious competition already with Keenan Allen, a guy who's been the dominant alpha target share leader on his team for, a decade? Now he's already got to compete with Keenan, but you add an elite wide receiver prospect in Rome Odunze. Okay, a guy that some people who we respect are comparing to Devontae Adams. My comp for him was Sutton in his prime and Chris Olave combined.
Yeah.
Now he's got to compete with that as well. I don't love this for Odunze just because I simply don't see like a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua type of rookie season. I think target's going to be hard to come by. And, it's just really tough envisioning those three guys all being top 20 or top 15 or top 12. It's just really difficult to see the upside with them adding an elite wide receiver prospect like Odunze. I don't like it for any of these guys, I'll be honest with you, but I have a lot of DJ Moore stock, and I think he's the safest of those three heading into year one of this new team.
Agreed.
But I still think it's going to impact his ceiling.
Yeah, 100% is going to impact the ceiling. I think DJ Moore is at least safe for this year, and I think next year, like going into 2025, I think we might have to reevaluate, and it could be hopefully a sell high potential if he does finish in the top 12 or top 15 with the rookie quarterback. But yes, I completely agree. All right, my second loser of today here is your Kansas City Chiefs. Two wide receivers, not Kansas City Chiefs specifically, but two wide receivers on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sure.
Hollywood Brown and Richie Rich, which is Rashee Rice, I like to call him here. The Chiefs trade up for a wide receiver who we saw break NFL records, or NFL Combine records specifically, with the running a 4.22. Xavier, in my personal opinion, could easily be the wide receiver one by the end of this year for this team here. Let's think about it. Hollywood Brown is on a one-year contract. Most likely, in my personal opinion, I doubt maybe he gets re-signed unless he has a phenomenal year, which means Xavier Worthy is not the number one wide receiver. Rashee Rice, who a lot of people in the fantasy community are already skeptical about with his potential suspension, his all these other issues that he's dealing with off the field. Now you're also saying, what about Travis Kelce? Let's remember, last year we were Travis Kelce and the fantasy community was saying, man, Travis Kelce could be retiring. This could be over for Travis Kelce because, he won a Super Bowl, he went back-to-back, he fell in love with Taylor Swift, et cetera, et cetera. That is still a possibility after this year. Okay, so keep that in mind. Are now acquired Xavier Worthy, who has, I would personally say, he is not the same talent, nowhere near the same talent as Tyreek Hill, but maybe this is the role that they were trying to fill when Tyreek Hill was gone, right? They tried it with the Mecole Hardman, with the MVSs, with the Sky Moores, with the Kadarius Toney, whether it was the separation or the slot type of wide receiver or someone that has decent speed or the jitteriness or the twitchiness, all that is compact into this player in Xavier Worthy. He has everything that each and every one of those players that I've just said, has as individuals. Xavier Worthy here, not saying he is the most superior prospect, but what he does have is elite speed, which definitely Andy Reid loves in this offense. When you think of this role, I think this is exactly what they were trying to fill, but now they found their guy, which he will get the Chiefs bump in your rookie drafts. Let's look at it, right? I think the biggest conversation, I don't think anyone's worried about Hollywood Brown. At least we're not worried about Hollywood Brown in our channel. I think we've seen a lot of people in the other fans.
What do you mean by that?
When I say no one's
worried about him, how?
We're not worried about Hollywood Brown in a fantasy perspective. We don't think that he's going to come in and be.
Are you saying you're not worried about him being impacted, or you don't?
I'm not worried about him.
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
I'm not worried about. Yeah, I'm not worried about Hollywood Brown having a significant role on this offense with Xavier Worthy being here. A lot of people were worried about Hollywood Brown before this draft, before Xavier Worthy was drafted, because Rashee Rice was there, and they picked up Hollywood Brown. It's like, oh, Rashee Rice, be careful, right? Because Hollywood's going to take all those opportunities. No. And now, in my personal opinion, it kind of makes Hollywood Brown the third wide receiver on this offense, where Rashee Rice is now in question of like, okay, can he really see those opportunities with Xavier Worthy here, especially with the off-the-field issues? Before the legal issues, Rashee Rice was wide receiver 21. After the legal issues, Rashee Rice was wide receiver 31 now. Let's see how further he is going to fall now that Xavier Worthy is on this team. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be irrelevant. I'm saying I do believe Xavier Worthy is going to surpass Rashee Rice probably by the end of this year with his speed.
All right, I'll just quickly, a couple things. I am a Chiefs fan. Sure. I have a vested interest in Rashee Rice. I think this impacts Hollywood Brown way more than it impacts Rashee Rice. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to claim that Rashee Rice isn't impacted by this move, but I think Hollywood Brown is way more impacted. If you even look at like Daniel Jeremiah, his pro comp for Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. I keep talking about how we think about wide receivers as a basketball room, building a basketball room up. Well, Hollywood and Marquise Brown are kind of similar players. I think Rashee Rice, his role is completely different. to what an Xavier or a Hollywood Brown would do for this team. And I also think we quickly forget how good Rashee Rice was as a rookie. There has never been a Chiefs wide receiver who put up the kind of numbers that Rashee Rice put up in his rookie season. No one had more receptions in this offense. And I think we also discount how difficult that was to do, to learn Andy Reid's offense and still produce like that. So I do think Rashee Rice is going to be a huge buy. If you can get him for a late second, that's probably what the price will be. Then there's not a more glaring buy in Dynasty football, in my opinion. But I do agree, which is why I told you guys to sell Hollywood Brown before the draft, that he is a huge loser here. Yeah. Not to say that Rice isn't. I just think it impacts Hollywood way more than
I completely agree there. I just think if I had to put my money on it, I think Xavier Worthy could surpass Rice to be the number one wide receiver on this team. That's basically what I'm saying when I say Rice is a loser in this aspect. He's still going to have a role. Yeah. I think Xavier Worthy could surpass him.
Yeah, I don't view Worthy as like this dominant target share guy at the next level. I do view him as a very good player, but I think he's like a complimentary 1B or 2. So I think we just view him a little bit differently, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
The last player that I think is a loser is Bryce Young. This may surprise some people. I love Bryce Young. We were big Bryce Young buyers this offseason. And, let me just explain myself for a second. There were a ton of wide receivers that I was absolutely in love with the idea of them joining Bryce Young in Carolina. And unfortunately, Xavier Legette was not on that list for me personally. He was not one of those receivers that I was obsessed with joining Bryce Young. I was obsessed with Ladd McConkey, Jalen McMillan, Troy Franklin, A.D. Mitchell, Jalen Polk, Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton, all these guys that I believed could separate in day one, could separate at the next level, who are good route runners, refined technique. I was obsessed with those guys falling to Carolina and really benefiting a guy like Bryce Young. Well, Xavier Legette, the biggest red flag I had on his profile, there were two of them: the late production, because he only produced in his 5th year, by the way, and his route running and his ability to separate. Those were the two red flags on his profile. What did Carolina receivers struggle with all last year? Being able to get open. They had such little separation. There's plenty of metrics that you can find out there. They were a bottom 5 receiving unit in separation, and that really impacted Bryce Young. I like Legette, but there were a lot of flags for me. I mean, I went back and I looked at my scouting report on him, and here's some of the things that I wrote down. A concern is that he was a 5th-year senior and only broke out in his 5th year. Another concern is he's not a technically sound route runner. He doesn't have a large route tree either. At the moment, it's clear how he wins, with size and speed. However, he's not a nuanced route runner. He was deployed mainly in the screen game and with go balls or 9 routes. For his size, he's got really nice twitch and can be a menace in space, but at the moment, he doesn't possess the route running prowess that many of the other prospects in this class do. And the last thing that was a concern for me is that he struggled versus press despite his physicality. I was looking at it, the game versus Georgia in particular, he faced some really good DBs, the type of DBs he'll face at the next level. And despite his huge frame, he was struggling to fight off of these guys. And it's not because he's not a strong dude. It's because he has no technique in his route running. I think he's still very raw. And I hate to say it, but I think the Carolina Panthers could regret this pick the same way they regretted taking Jonathan Mingo over Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, and Josh Downs. So I hate to say it. I just, as someone who has a lot of Bryce Young, I hated that pick. I would have rather it been like 5 other wide receivers.
Sure. And that makes sense. Look, I like Xavier Legette. I clearly had him higher in my rankings. I wasn't expecting him to be a first round, and I would agree. I do have these other wide receivers that are currently available now in the NFL draft ahead of Xavier Legette. But I think this brings size and speed that they didn't have before. And I think he is an overall better route runner than maybe what you're comparing to Jonathan Mingo. So I think the upside. I
didn't compare him to Jonathan Mingo one time, by the way.
Sorry, I just think I think a lot of people have compared him to Jonathan Mingo, and I think the upside with Xavier Legette is significantly higher, in my opinion, than Jonathan Mingo. But
I didn't compare him to Jonathan Mingo, but do you trust Daniel Jeremiah? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Just asking anyone out there. His comp for him was Jonathan Mingo.
Sure. So we'll wait and see. And this is a whole new head coach, a whole new regime as well. So anything could happen here. All right. And the last and final loser for this list, which I do believe is still up for debate because anything can happen in the second round, is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a huge loser for day one. I mean, this is round one losers, right? I mean, we kind of expected Josh Allen to by now have a wide receiver. Now they did trade back. They traded back with the Chiefs. The Chiefs moved up, who was one of their biggest rivals, and they got an elite speed weapon in Xavier Worthy. So this kind of tells me, and I said this on our live stream, I wonder if they really see this as a reset. They got rid of a lot of defensive players. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. What is going to happen here for the Buffalo Bills? I think this might be a two-year potential reset, even though Josh Allen is their future quarterback. I think he can take them as far as possible, even without the limited weapons. But still, they could potentially still get a wide receiver with that 33rd overall pick and Adonai Mitchell or Lamar Conkey, and things can definitely turn around. But if you are a Josh Allen owner, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you're probably saying, what the hell is going on? And why did we give the Chiefs Xavier Worthy, who at the moment is, once again, an elite prospect and just makes their team stronger, significantly stronger, who honestly is their rivals in the AFC here. So Josh Allen at the moment is one of the biggest losers, or one loser coming in out of this first round.
Yeah, that could easily change in round two. I think we all believe they're going to take a wide receiver at pick 33.
Let me say this. If they don't take a wide receiver with that 33rd overall pick and they go Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry or whatever the case may be, we are shaking our heads and saying, what's happening? Are we okay?
Curtis Samuel, baby.
Curtis Samuel. Hey, Shakira. Huh? Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, that is it for today, guys. So much content. Our heads are spinning. Our throats are destroyed. We appreciate you. Hit that like button. We'll see you soon. Hold on. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.